That's what just boggles my mind, Stanley.
Yeah, well, it does. Well, a lot of people have asked me about that. And we'll deal with that, George. But in the meantime, my book, Challenge the Change, deals with several major topics. The UFO phenomena is only one,
right.
However important, it is. But
it's not the whole thing.
We could devote the entire program on any one issue. So I appreciate if we could deal with this one because it's a current. At this time, it is it's a very current topic of national interest. So let's deal with that.
Sure.
Now, there is still a great deal of misinformation and perception relating to the UFO display over New York on the 13th of October, obviously from all the correspondence that I got. And in order to clarify this issue, I think it is important to know the background to this alien intervention. They were not on a Sunday cruise. They came here for a very specific purpose. But the UFO display over New York is rooted deep in Earth's environmental crisis. Now, your listeners to this program are generally aware of our environmental crisis. The CO2 pollution of our atmosphere is now at 9% average worldwide, worse in China, of course, rising at 1% annually to the critical mass of 22% in which humans could not survive. Now, the aliens, in particular the Pleiadians, have monitored the Earth for millions of years, and they are well aware of our critical situation. So accordingly, the Alien Council, which consists of 8 powerful planetary systems, that is the Pleiades, the Alpha Centaurians, the Bertis, the Orion Sirians, Passetis, Zeta Reticuli, and the Compsolites, they determined at the regular Alien Council meeting about a year ago, that they would intervene to save mankind from extinction. They would come and clean up our polluted atmosphere because the solution is now beyond our technologies. Now, my sources tell me that this was one of the greatest decisions in the dramas of the universe. Why? Well, my source, the Transgender Spiritual Group, from which I get all of this information, it doesn't come from me. There's no way I could come up with this kind of information. And they tell me that countless thousands of alien societies have polluted their planet to total extinction. Not a single being, animal, or plant survived. Mind you, some planets have destroyed themselves through wars and cloning as well.
Right.
But the thing is that, and the transgenders warn, is that planet Earth is on that path. We're not the worst, but we're in the top 10%. So we're in a pretty serious situation. Now, where was the Alien Council in these critical times when these planets were virtually polluting themselves?
Ready to wipe themselves out. Yeah, where were they?
And now they have determined to save planet Earth.
Why?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Now, there are several. I asked about that because there are several reasons for this decision. First, the Earth is unique in the universe. It has the greatest emotional energies of any planet in the universe. The aliens have some degree of emotion. Some, like the Berties, normally we refer to them as the Greys. They are our abductors, but they have absolutely no emotions. So they don't understand it at all, but they are fascinated by it. They watch all those yelling, screaming, crying, laughing spectators in our football and hockey matches, and they are absolutely fascinated, although most of them still don't understand our emotional energies. Mm-hmm. They monitor our communication systems every day and our national, the national human events and sports and that sort of thing with a great deal of interest. For example, this transgender would tell me that more than 300 billion aliens watched the Winter Olympics in Vancouver last winter. Now, there's another reason is that they believe that there is hope for mankind's spirituality, that someday soon we shall rise to a higher spiritual consciousness, basically confirming the Mayan prophecies. So those are the basic reasons why, apparently, according to the transgenders, that they decided to intervene. But they feared that their sudden intervention to clean up the Earth's atmosphere would create massive fear, panic, and confusion. Accordingly, they decided that they would perform a gradual introduction to their alien reality. They would appear over our principal cities with a tentative date of 30th of October 2010. They would not land or communicate. They would do so every year until 2015, at which time they will start to clean up our atmosphere. And their interventions would become more aggressive year after year. Tentatively, they plan as their last major contact that they would address the United Nations in 2014. Now, because, well, for one thing, the Pleiadians are fluent in English. And
They've been here before many times, I'm sure, right?
Well, they of course, and they learn our language. They have
Stanley, are we seeded from one of these species?
No, absolutely not.
We are not.
Not according to the transgenders say no. That myth goes back. Well, what happened apparently? About 100,000 years ago, I suppose thereabouts.
Maybe.
According to the transgenders, one of these planetary society. I don't know which ones it was.
Of the ones you mentioned?
Well, one of those of the.
All right.
They dropped off thousands of their social undesirables type of thing on Earth.
Criminals.
Yes.
We're like a prison planet, right?
Yes, at that time.
All right.
Now, these, of course, they didn't look like us, but the human beings on Earth at that time didn't look upon them as being a threat in any way, and there was a great deal of interaction between them, and there was some
breeding.
Pardon?
Breeding?
Yeah, interbreeding between them. However, it didn't work out, and after a while, they died off completely.
Don't tell me they were the fallen angels.
Oh no.
Right.
The angels have absolutely nothing
that's
to do
different.
with that.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, so about 3 weeks ago. Now that's the information I got a year ago. Now about 3 weeks ago, they came to the conclusion that their massive UFO display over the world's principal cities would create too much fear and panic. So that they may do later, but they didn't think this was the right time for us. So they reduced their display to one city in New York. And I got that information, I say, just about 3 weeks ago. And so that's...
Well, I got to tell you, Stanley, your timing's impeccable.
Yes, it was. So, but the thing is, though, the question arises, and a lot of people have asked, well, why New York? So I asked the translators, my source, principal, why New York? Well, New York is fundamentally an international city, a cosmopolitan center with tremendous financial and media influences throughout the world. And, of course, New Yorkers are rather a blasé people, as you would know, I'm sure, George, who would not be overwhelmed with the sight of UFOs. They chose, incidentally, I asked, well, why didn't they go to Washington? And they said they chose not to go to Washington because their presence would be considered too threatening.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
But also now, so you understand why they picked New York. That's only the start, of course. Now they'll be coming back because this is part of their plan to introduce themselves to mankind one step at a time.
The story I was telling you about, Stanley, about the town in China. Apparently, there was a UFO spotted there, and the entire town is gone. I mean, physically, it's gone.
Well,
and now I don't know if this is a story or what, but it's all over the place now.
Well, George, my book deals with that to some extent. But yes, this is not the first time this has happened. You ever heard of ghost armies?
Yeah.
Sometimes,
yeah.
And like there was this army, French army, that was going through the Pyrenees and to Spain. One thing, there was about 4,000 of them. They totally disappeared.
That's right.
One incident. There was another incident that happened in the Middle East. Oh, well, there's been quite a number of them. And the thing is, it's all part of the British abductions. The British are these greys, the large heads with the large black almond-shaped eyes.
Right.
Well, they are brilliant. Their IQ would be up around 350, 400, and Einstein would have difficulty in their kindergartens, according to transgenders. But the thing is that although they're very brilliant, they thought and some of them live for several thousand years. Most of them can live up to around 700 years. And I inquired about that, just what brought this about. Well, they were so brilliant, and they were doing all these wonderful things. I guess they thought they could live forever. But there's a God's law, the universal principle of diversity, which ensures that there's no soul, there's no being in the universe that lives forever. They all die, although some of them live for several thousands of years. So I thought that was rather interesting. But the thing is, they cloned themselves to death. So they went to the alien council, and they begged the alien council if they could interact with humans, because our DNA is very similar in structure to theirs, and because they wanted to develop a reproductive process again, so they could survive. The alien council, and especially the Pleiadians, fought against that very strongly.
They fought against that.
Oh, yes, they were very much against the birthdays. They thought, well, you brought it upon yourselves. You pay the price.
Stanley, we're going to take this quick break, but I'm going to come right back with you. We're going to come right back, and we're also going to take some phone calls, but I want to get into this situation with these aliens. And also, Stanley is a former NORAD officer.